The story begins in the year 447. A colossal war erupted worldwide between the 6 heroes and the menacing Demon Lord. The Demon Lord's army of skeletons charged eagerly onto the battlefield, ready to face off against the heroes. While the skeletons managed to defeat some human soldiers, one of the heroes possessed the extraordinary ability to bring the fallen soldiers back to life. But these heroes had received divine blessings, transforming them into celestial beings with angelic forms. Meanwhile, Demon Lord Leonis observed the unfolding conflict from the comfort of his chamber, peering into a crystal ball. Then, the Demon Lord is told by an assassin named Sherry that other forts have been taken down, and their castle is going to be attacked next. Then, out of nowhere, a colossal tree-like creature emerged, further fueling the Demon Lord's anger. He recognized it as the Archsage hero, who had sacrificed his humanity to gain immense power. Leonis gets really angry and wants to destroy the humans. He summons his special weapon, but his loyal companion, Fenrir, reminds him that he made a promise to the goddess Rebellion when he was still a human. With a heavy heart, Leonis chose to acknowledge defeat. He released his grip on the staff and began to make his way toward a nearby door, even as his castle crumbled around him. Before disappearing from sight, he made a solemn oath that he would return, rekindling his strength after 1,000 years, with the sole purpose of reclaiming his rightful throne. And so, Leonis sealed his own soul within the hallowed confines of the Grand Mausoleum. 1,000 years later, 2 girls set out to explore the ancient ruins. One of them is named Riselia, and they are on a mission to investigate the underground ruins that had emerged due to an earthquake. Their goal is to search for the lair of creatures known as voids. However, they are only allowed to engage in combat for self-defense. As they venture further, they notice a curious absence of any signs of the voids. Their attention is suddenly grabbed by a fallen sculpture. Riselia explains to her partner, Regina, that they might be in a burial site, and it's common for kings to be buried with valuable items. They wonder if they will stumble upon the tomb of a great king, and they contemplate how lonely it must be if it is indeed the resting place of a king. Soon, they come across a door, but Regina struggles to open it. She believes that the only way to proceed is to forcefully break it open. However, Riselia, the more astute of the two, notices inscriptions on the door and realizes that it's not an ordinary door. Regina decides to explore the surroundings while Riselia uses her skills to decipher the ancient writings on the door. To her astonishment, the door begins to open when she touches it. With caution, Riselia retrieves her gun and approaches a peculiar crystal that disrupts her device. She senses the presence of someone inside and feels compelled to help them. As she peers into the crystal, we get glimpses of a scene from the past when Leonis encountered the goddess of rebellion, named Riselia, to whom he had made a promise. In this flashback during the war, Leonis explained to the goddess that the heroes were wreaking havoc upon the kingdom. He resolved to seal away his own soul to uphold his promise to her. As Riselia witnesses this, she is relieved to know that he still remembers their commitment. As she prepares to leave, Leonis attempts to stop her from departing, but she simply instructs him to find her in the future. Back in the present, Riselia had made up her mind to free the trapped individual. Inside the crystal, Leonis stirred awake, bewildered by the commotion. He was infuriated because the tomb was supposed to be completely sealed. However, he deduced that the reincarnation ceremony had succeeded and 1,000 years had indeed passed. Listening to the girl's voice outside, Leonis employed his magical skills to understand her words. Leonis concluded that she must be a rather foolish grave robber. Determined to show her the might of a demon lord, he employed a potent incantation to shatter the crystal. Initially, Leonis intended to punish the girl for her perceived wrongdoing. However, his plans came to a halt when she regained consciousness and inquired why a child was present. Leonis was taken aback when he realized that he was now in the body of a young boy. He questioned whether the reincarnation had gone wrong. Leonis had used magic to revert his body to a previous form, expecting to return as his formidable demon lord self. Instead, he found himself in his old human form from his days as a hero, known as Leonis the Hero. Riselia checked his condition to ensure he wasn't injured and assured him that everything was now fine, promising to protect him. Leonis seethed at the perceived disrespect toward a demon lord but found a strange comfort in her presence. Eventually, he succumbed to exhaustion and fainted. Upon awakening, Leonis enjoyed some cookies that Riselia had offered him. He grumbled about his new body fainting due to hunger and feeling too comfortable after a hug. Nonetheless, he acknowledged that this girl he had just met might have saved his life. Riselia introduced herself as a 15-year-old knight from the 7 Soul Swordsman Training Academy and asked Leonis for his name. Although he had no idea what she was talking about, Leonis realized that she assumed he was an innocent child. He decided to use her to gather information about the world of today. Starting with the basics, he shared his name, Leonis, reflecting on the pride he felt in a name given to him by a special person. Riselia found Leonis's name adorable and decided to call him Leo. This frustrated him deeply. She asked him about his age. He says that he is 10-year-old. Then she asks what he is doing here and conclude herself that this might be the work of Void. He clarified to Riselia that he had no knowledge of the Void, prompting her to explain that the Void had appeared as an enemy of humanity 64 years ago, seemingly from another world. They relentlessly attacked humans, and knights like herself wielded swords to defend humanity. Leonis was puzzled by this revelation since in his time, the enemies of humanity were demons like himself. This made him realize that his history as the Demon Lord had likely been forgotten or erased over the years. Riselia explained that she was there to investigate a void nest, and that Leonis was found by accident. Suddenly, a loud explosion echoed, and Regina informed them that she had engaged with a colossal void. Riselia shielded Leonis from the collapsing room and vowed to keep him safe. An ogre-class void burst into the room, and Riselia prepared her gun with a limit release. Leonis finally saw what a void looked like but decided he wouldn't tolerate any more violence in the mausoleum where his friends rested. He, Leonis, the great demon lord master of ancient and forbidden spells, began weaving a powerful incantation to erase the ogre from this world. However, he tripped and fell, lamenting his weak human body. Riselia worried that her weapon might not be strong enough, but Regina arrived with her bazooka, blasting off the monster's arm. They made their escape, and Leonis contemplated how everything seemed to be going wrong. The reincarnation had not gone as planned. He had been reduced to a fragile mortal, his kingdom was far from restored, and his castle was being vandalized by monsters. While Leonis was confident in his ability to defeat the creature, he refrained from using his powers to maintain his hidden identity as the Demon Lord. They encountered a wyvern-class void, which terrified Riselia. She transformed her gun into a sword, opting for close-quarter combat. Leonis reluctantly decided to reveal his power, casting a spell that would end the fight. However, Riselia believed it better to push him to the ground. She turned her attention to the void, but it gravely injured her. Leonis rushed to her side, questioning her sacrifice. She had no answer and urged him to find Regina to escape. As another void appeared, Riselia apologized for not being able to protect him. Holding her hand as she passed away, Leonis couldn't help but think she was foolish for sacrificing her life for him, even though the attack wouldn't have harmed him. He considered bravery like her stupid, but admitted he had developed a bit of a soft spot for the brave girl. Her actions reminded him of Riselia, the goddess of rebellion, who had protected him when he was a human hero. The very humans he had tried to protect had ultimately betrayed him, leading him to become the Demon Lord. Several voids surrounded Leonis, but their attacks proved futile against the formidable magic barrier of the great Demon Lord. Leonis, who was now human once more, found himself experiencing emotions again, and anger was the prevailing feeling. Summoning his staff, Leonis proclaimed that the voids all deserved to meet their end. His first spell unleashed a giant gravitational orb that crushed one of the voids. He explained that they would all face punishment for their deeds. The void attempted to resist, but Leonis had reached his limit and obliterated the creature. Another void, seemingly unaware of its inability to penetrate his barrier, attempted an attack. In response, Leonis weaponized his barrier, sending multiple spikes through the creature. The final void, witnessing the demise of its companions, tried to flee. However, Leonis was determined not to let it escape. He unleashed a devastating fire spell that consumed the void with his flames. Leonis emerged victorious but noticed that his attack had left behind the creature's bones. This was a novel development. Even against the most formidable monsters in the past, he hadn't encountered this outcome. It dawned on him that in his current form, he possessed at best only a third of the strength he used to wield. Returning to Riselia's side, Leonis found her barely clinging to life. He declared himself as the great Demon Lord, emphasizing that he typically didn't care about human life. However, he had respect for noble souls, and Riselia had defended him with her life. Leonis acknowledged her spirit and contemplated his limited healing abilities. He was a master of all magic related to death, but lacked proficiency in healing. Still, he decided to do what he could for her. As he used a spell to return her blood to her, he noticed a strange mark on her leg. Leonis wondered how she would react when she learned the truth about his identity, whether she would be angry or fall into despair. After completing the spell, Riselia lay unconscious, and Regina frantically attempted to send her a message using a remote-talking magical tool. Leonis didn't understand how it worked but was impressed by the advancements in mankind's magical technology. Then, Riselia woke up, and Leonis greeted her. She immediately got up, thanking God that Leonis was safe. Leonis found this reaction strange because typically people tend to worry about their own well-being first. Riselia was shocked to be alive, as she was certain she had been deeply wounded, but Leonis explained that her injury wasn't as severe as it appeared, and he had healed it with sacred magic. Riselia was confused when Leonis mentioned magic because she recalled that neither she nor Regina had used spells during their fight. It was evident that they couldn't use spells and relied on their weapons, crafted with advanced magical techniques. Riselia assumed that when Leonis mentioned magic, he must have been referring to the power of the holy sword, but Leonis had no idea what she was talking about. She went on to explain that some holy swords had healing powers, and she believed that was why the void had captured him. However, Leonis remained puzzled. She clarified that the holy sword was a power awakened by mankind to combat the void. A few years after the void's appearance, humanity was on the brink of defeat. Some children developed strange powers, many taking the form of weapons, and these were called holy swords. Regina's holy sword was named Jack Hall. The origin of these weapons was unknown, but many seemed to reflect the personality of their wielders, a weapon embodying the soul. Riselia mentioned that she hadn't been granted the power of the holy sword yet, and Leonis realized that this was why she had fought with a magical tool. He understood that his magical power was different from what she was describing, and he decided it was best to keep it a secret from everyone. Just then, Regina returned and inquired about what happened to the void that had attacked them. Leonis lied, claiming that he had been so terrified of the monsters that he was shaking, and before he knew it, they had disappeared for some unknown reason. The girls accepted his explanation, and they all left the ruins on a motorcycle. While riding, Regina wondered about the boy, speculating that he might have been abandoned for being a coward. Riselia explained that he had been captured by the void, and his memories were all jumbled. Regina continued to tease him throughout the trip, thinking that startling him might help him regain his memories. Leonis endured her playful behavior and questioned how an immortal demon lord could be teased by such a girl. As they approached their destination, Riselia explained that it was the final stronghold of humanity, constructed to combat the void. It was known as the Garden of the Seven Sacred Swords Academy. Leonis was filled with wonder at the sight of this place, recognizing that it was a new world, 1,000 years distant from his own. This brings an end to our episode 1. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel.